All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday webinar series for today, March 7th. We're going to be talking about successful strategies for decreasing food waste in your school meals program. So my name is Molly Stenberg, and I'm a lucky person to work with Montana Team Nutrition, and we work with OPI school nutrition programs up in Helena. So could somebody in the chat box just confirm with me that you can hear me okay? Erin Moore checked in earlier, but I want to make sure that you guys can hear me now. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Before we get started, I'd just like to put out a few housekeeping items. One is that I would like everybody to sign in with your name and school district in the chat box. That is the only way we know who is on, and so we'd like to know who's attending these webinars. You can also use the chat box to get a message into me. Use it for questions. I'll use it to answer back, or I'll give you a verbal answer. If you have resources or best practice tips you'd like to share, we can use the chat box for all of those things. So the chat box is located on your upper left-hand side of your screen. And to put a message in there, you would type in the white box and then click on the little conversation bubble. And then the other box I'd like to direct you to is the file share box on the lower left-hand side of your screen. And in that file share box, you will find handouts that go with today's session. You'll also find a certificate of participation for this session, which you can print out and file with your record so that you can count this time towards your professional standards hours. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I do want to acknowledge the Indiana Department of Education. Their staff member, Allie Cato, had developed a really nice PowerPoint presentation dealing with food waste, and so she graciously let me use some of her slides, so I did not have to develop this from scratch. So I greatly appreciate that. So talking about food waste today, it really is an issue that is becoming more, I think people are looking at it more and thinking about it more because the statistics are truly staggering. That Americans waste enough food every day to fill a 90,000 seat football stadium. 31% overall of the food supply at both the retail, school, and consumer level went uneaten in the United States in 2010. So if we think about, we have 1 in every 5 children in our state going hungry, but most of us are wasting at least 31% of the food we buy. That's really a shocking thing to think about. In addition to thinking about how schools can decrease food waste, I would also like to inspire you to think about how we can get the message out to students and their families on how they can waste less food at home. Most American families waste about 40% of the food that we buy, which is about $2,000 worth of food a year. So think what we could do with an extra $2,000 a year, money that we would be saving on that food waste. So this is a really nice graphic that USDA developed several years ago that talks about what schools specifically can do to reduce food waste. And I did put this graphic in the file share box for you so that you would have it. It's really a nice thing to share with the school administrator, your school board, or your school wellness committee. And we'll be talking about these things throughout the presentation. So topics for today, we're going to talk about things that schools can do in the back of the house and in the front of the house to decrease food waste. We'll also talk about how your lunchroom environment and school policies can help reduce waste. And when we're talking about food waste, we're going to think about the 3 R's, which are reducing food waste, recovering food that was uneaten or unused, and then recycling any food that we can't recover for other uses. So you guys are all so good at this, and you run very effective kitchens and school meal programs. So I'm just going to breeze through some of this pretty quickly because I know you're already doing it, but I think it was worth mentioning that thinking about things you're doing in the back of the house, meaning meal planning, purchasing, receiving, storing, or producing food, those are called back of the house, planning through production. So thinking about things that could help you reduce waste by using a cycle menu, by using standardized recipes, using efficient purchasing, receiving, and storing procedures, using your production records to track how much food you're producing and how much is left over, and then looking at repurposing any excess food. So before we get into this too much, I would like to pull a poll in so that I could see, we can see what you guys are doing to really reduce food waste in your programs. And so I'm going to open this right now. It's please share your top 2 tips to decrease food waste at your school. If you would type your answer in there. Okay, somebody's saying they offer students choices and they recycle for animal food. Yes. Offer versus serve and portioning utensils. That is excellent. Serve it out the next day or freeze what they can to reuse in at least 6 weeks. Excellent. I'll leave this up here for 1 more minute. I'm going to type in one thing I do at home to decrease food waste. I take leftovers for lunch the next day. Have the kids try a courtesy bite to see if they may like the food. Great. The courtesy bite is a good strategy because it gives them a little sample, it gives them a spoonful of a new food and not a whole scoop of it. Okay, did I get them all there? All right, thank you for sharing those tips with us. Okay, so talking about a cycle menu, some people hate the thought of a cycle menu, but if you can even use a loose cycle menu, it really can help you save time in your ordering. It can help you keep good control of your inventory, and it's really a consistent record keeping. It can help you with forecasting, and you can substitute seasonal foods in and out as needed. So if you're not using a cycle menu, it is a strategy that you can really that you might think about. And you might ask some of our peer educators or friends or co-workers in other school districts if they have examples of cycle menus they would share. Standardized recipes really go a long way in helping you and your staff prepare an accurate amount of food with consistent quality and taste. Your customers, when they love your chili, they want it to taste the same every time. So if you're using a different recipe or just kind of preparing it off the cuff, or if you have a sub in that day, a standardized recipe can really help keep your quality consistent. And it also help you from underproducing or overproducing. So you'll save money that way. If I know that a lot of you do use batch cooking, and that's really nice to decrease food waste because you can cook a batch for each lunch group that's coming in, and that way it's not mushy, it's a little better quality. If you have kids that if it's not a favorite, you would cook less of it. If it's really a favorite, you would cook more of it. So batch cooking is a way to really decrease food waste as well. So ready, set, goal. If you're not doing any of these, you might think about working one of these ideas in next year. If you're already doing that, that's great too. Storing food is an important tool so that you can store it properly, it lasts longer, and you're able to take care of it, and it's really good quality. Inventory control is another big area that if you can try to prevent over ordering, using the first in, first out method, so you're constantly rotating food in and serving it at its freshest point. Looking at designing your storage areas so you can access your product really easily and rotate them when new deliveries come in. And then dating and labeling foods. So somebody said that they use their frozen items within 6 weeks, so I'm thinking that you'll probably label that food so you know the date that you need to use it by. So consistent procedures to help you take care of food that's already in your storage. Production records can be a great useful tool to help you forecast the amount of food that you're planning on preparing for that day's menu. So if you're using an electronic production record, you can pull it up on the computer. If you're using a cycle menu and you have them printed out and your production records are in a binder, if you can look back and see, like on this day, a baked chicken drumstick, how many meals you served that day. You served 91 meals, and that you used this recipe, must be the Healthier Kansas meal recipe number 27. Maybe that was like 200 chicken legs. So if you know you had 200 chicken legs and you had 12 legs over, that's not too bad. But if your production record showed that you had 30 chicken legs left over, that would be something that you'd want to decrease the amount you prepare later on. The other thing you can use your production records for is if you're offering 2 choices of fruit. So here you see sliced peaches or apples. You can see, based on 90 kids, the last time you served this meal, how much peaches for number 10 cans you planned, and you were 1 can over. You can see how much you used and which choices the students liked the best. Now, those of you who have been in your positions for years, I would say that you probably know your customers better than anyone. But for those of you that might be newer in your positions, I think it's really important to try to fill these out as accurately as possible so that you can produce food as accurately as you can, so you're not over or under producing. So the other little tidbit on back of the house tips is repurposing excess food. And Katie and I think that repurposing excess sounds maybe more positive than reusing leftover food. So when you're thinking about repurposing excess foods, let us know in the chat box your best strategies to repurpose leftovers or to repurpose excess food. This picture shows a picture of Gardner School Salad Bar. They are a Harvest of the Month site, so 10 months out of the year they are promoting and serving a locally grown Montana food. So the day before I was there to take this picture, they had roasted beets on their hot lunch menu. And they had excess roasted beets, and so when I was there the next day, they featured them on their salad bar. And it's hard to tell the color of this picture, but you can see that little sign that says roasted beets. So they really tasted great as a cold salad, and they just had them located right next to their pickled beets. So the students had their regular pickled beets and then also their roasted beets from the previous day. I'm going to pull in another poll, number 41, and I'm just wondering if you would tell me, how do you repurpose excess food to make it appealing to students? What are your best strategies to repurpose any excess food. Whether you use it on your salad bar, do you make a soup out of it the next day? Use it in smoothies. Great. We warm it up to temp and offer it as a choice for the next day's lunch. Excellent. We serve it as leftovers and put it in soups. Great. We use it as a leftover the next day. All right, great. Well, I know that you guys never throw away food, so I'm sure you have lots of creative ways to repurpose an excess from the previous day. Serve it as leftovers and put in soup. Okay, I think we got them all. Okay. Just things that we have picked up from our school visits is, I know Manhattan Elementary School, where my kids go, they do a daily homemade soup. So if they have a lasagna entree one day, then they repurpose it into an Italian soup the following day. Billings Skyview High School, they do a really nice smoothie bar using excess fruit from the previous day's salad bar, which is a great way to use up that fruit. A lot of schools offer it as a choice at the next morning's breakfast meal, or recreate it into a salad bar item with a different name and some colorful food items added in. So I'm using up those leftovers, or those excesses, is a great way to avoid throwing it away. All right, reducing waste in the front of the house. This is where we'll talk about service tips along your service line, marketing things you can do to really make food sound and look so good that they'll eat everything on their tray, and then different school policies that really promote or support a lunchroom that is a pleasant, comfortable place to eat, and that students have enough time to eat. So I think the best way to reduce food waste is to use offer versus serve. And so thank you for those of you who said that earlier. I just see it's comment in the chat box. I am struggling with communication with staff members. I just took over as a head cook a month ago, and we had not done a lunch count for over a decade. High school has an open campus lunch period, and then they have last-minute scheduled class meetings. I would love to know how everyone is communicating with the teachers and the staff. Ooh, if ladies, please do type your experiences into the chat box with this. But Erin, I know that some schools do not take a meal count, and I think that by not taking one, you really have a situation where you don't know how much to prepare. And no school cook is going to under-prepare, so I would talk to your school board and your school administrator about how much the food costs if you make 20 meals over a day without an accurate meal count. You know, most classroom teachers are taking attendance and can easily do a meal count and send it down to the office by the first 30 minutes of the day. So because food is so expensive, I think you have every right to ask your classroom teachers to do a meal count. Okay, and it looks like the ladies from Harlow are saying that their secretary gets a lunch count every morning. Really important so that you know how much to prepare. And then things do happen that there's a field trip that they forget to tell you about, but on a day-to-day basis, a daily meal count is essential so that you're not guessing on how many meals to prepare. Okay, let's talk quickly about offer versus serve. It's a meal service option that allows students to create a reimbursable meal while declining some of the components in that meal. And I do think that offer versus serve is the best strategy to decrease waste, save money, and improve customer satisfaction. So under offer versus serve, students decide whether or not they would like to decline 0, 1, or 2 items. So there's 5 items in a lunch tray. And then in that you can decline 0, 1, or 2 items. So what we like to think is that you choose 3 out of the 5 items. And within that, students can decline any of those 2 items, including the milk and the entree, but students must take a fruit or a vegetable. So the options are included on the bottom of the slide here, or that they could take a half-cup serving of fruit, or a half-cup serving of vegetables, or they could take a 1/4 cup serving of fruit and a 1/4 cup serving of vegetable. And with any of those mixed and matched versions of the fruit or vegetable, then they would need 2 other components. So it really allows them the choice of what goes on their tray. And if you think about, if we're at a restaurant and at a salad bar, we would not put something on our tray that we knew we didn't want to eat. So if we allow students the choice to choose what they want on their tray and to politely decline what they don't, that really is a better method so that they are happy customers and they're not just throwing food in the garbage. Offer versus serve is required for lunch at senior high schools. It's optional at lunch in the lower grade levels, and it's optional at breakfast in all grade levels. But here in Montana, we strongly encourage that you do offer versus serve for all grade levels and at both meals, breakfast and lunch. If you can try to avoid pre-plating trays, that's a good strategy in itself to decrease waste. So if you are pre-plating trays, you're probably not using offer versus serve correctly, and you may be wasting more food. So if you can design your service line to allow students to choose, that's really ideal. And with simple positive signage and simple instructions, all students, even the youngest ones like kindergarten, first graders, can learn quickly how to choose as they go through the line. So these are examples of positive offer versus serve signage designed by students at Park High School in Livingston. We found that when we were there, and this was quite a few years ago, the students did not know that they had a choice of fruit or vegetables, and that the staff was pre-plating trays even at the high school level. So that's something that it's important that your staff know that you're doing offer versus serve, that they know how to use it, and it's really important that the students know that they have the option. So offer versus serve training, we have a great training called Meal or No Meal, and we just recently did an offer versus serve Wednesday webinar, which you could access the recording of. You could email me for a link to that, but it's really important that everybody on your staff knows how offer versus serve works. And I think it's great for any other adults in your lunch program to know that. So that would be like lunchroom aides, your cashier, teachers, so that everybody's on the same page with it. I have a little advice sprinkled in from our Montana School Food Service peer trainers, and so Tammy Wham is a food service director in Ennis, and she shared that offering a choice in fruit and vegetables helps decrease waste. And this is a picture of their pasta bar that they offer, a theme bar, once a month in Ennis, which is a nice way to offer choices. So when we're thinking about offer versus serve, there's a difference in planning your menus to meet the meal pattern, but then designing your service lines to use offer versus serve so that students create a reimbursable meal. And so This is a picture of Alder School salad bar. They only serve 20 students at Alder, but you could use this concept in a salad bar at a bigger school or along your main hot lunch line. So they offer roasted garbanzo beans as a choice on their salad bar, and you can see them there in the container on the far lower left. So the fact that they're offering those garbanzo beans as a choice means they've met their weekly meal pattern for legumes. They can offer it on their salad bar, and that meets the meal pattern, but they do not need to give a half of a cup of those garbanzo beans to every tray that goes through their line. So they're planning it by offering the beans, but they're using offer versus serve, so only the students that want the beans take them. You could give them a really small spoonful as a sample as they go through, but to think of this another way, if you have like refried beans on your menu, you could make it as a vegetable choice. And so the students who really like refried beans could have a half cup serving of that at lunch, but you would not need to give every single student who goes through the line that day a scoop of refried beans if you know that many of them might not be eating it. So as a reminder, please use your production records to help you remember how much food you used in the past. So if you're offering more choices, write that down on your production record so you have an accurate forecast. And then offer versus serve can be kind of challenging. So if you feel like you'd need a little refresher course or have some questions, please don't hesitate to contact OPI School Nutrition or us at Team Nutrition, and we can help you with that. Okay, more service line tips. Well, I got some of these from my kids last night. My 8th grade son said if you let kids serve themselves, they're more likely to eat it. So Columbia Falls High School, this is so awesome, this picture, this is their school hot lunch line. And with the Smarter Lunchrooms makeover, they changed it so their fruits and veggies are offered first in these really nice family-style bowls. And then after the students go through the fruit and veggies, then they come to the entrees. So the students are allowed to serve themselves, and they just have I think quarter cup or half cup spoodles in there, or just a normal size set of tongs, and the students do really well with that. I think it's encouraged to encourage kids to take small servings or reasonable servings to start with, and then let them know if they want seconds, they can come back for seconds on fruits or vegetables. I see there is a question about what are the standards for seconds in the chat box, and that's a pretty intense question. If it's okay with you, I think I'll wait until the end, and we can talk about that at the end, Erin. Thank you. Most schools do offer seconds on fruits or vegetables, and that's a nice way to make sure you don't have any leftover fruit or vegetables. And then offering multiple choices within components, so you can see they have a variety of fruits offered there. So lots of choices should appeal to students can find a choice within there that they like. Additional tips is, if you really want to decrease your packaging waste, you can look at using refillable condiment dispensers, so ketchup dispensers, ranch dispensers, or big squeeze bottle for your dressings. Using shallow hotel pans on your salad bar can help minimize waste because you're putting less food out at a time. So this requires changing them out more frequently in between lunch periods, but it nudges students to take more of it because it looks fresher, the pan's more full, and at the end of the lunch period you don't have a huge pan left over that's already been scooped out of numerous times. The other thing you can do is, if you have lunch periods that come in with all the younger kids first and your older students second, is you can start with quarter cup scoops or spoodles for your younger grades in your salad bar, and then before your older kids come in, you could quickly swap those out with a little larger size scoop if you'd like to do that. Or if you're serving your fruit or vegetables along the service line, giving them the choice, you could do a quarter cup portion for your younger kids, like a cub size, and then a larger half cup portion or a tiger size for your older kids. And then many of our food service peer educators said that they either offer a taste test or a small sample of a new menu item as the kids are coming through the line. And so if you do that, please make sure you tell them, come back if you'd like more, come back up and let me know if you liked it, or why, if you didn't like it, why didn't you like it, so that you can get some instant feedback from the students that day on a new item. So Marcia Wartick is a food service peer educator up in Ronan schools, and she had the suggestion to look at what is being thrown away. Do you need to make changes in what is offered and how it is cooked? So I know you guys are so busy getting the food out and making sure everything's running smoothly in the kitchen itself that it's hard to find the time to get out to the tray return or the garbage can area to see what's being thrown away. But if you can do that every so often, it is so important to see what is being thrown away and what is really not being thrown away, so that it's good to just get that informal just be like informally monitoring your waste. And then talk to students, find out what they like or do not like, and then really keep a close eye out on local trends like Taco Tuesday, Turkey Ranch wraps. I know Cindy Giese in Lewistown used to model a grab-and-go meal after whatever the McDonald's down the road from her was doing. So the idea is that you're following the local trends and you're keeping students in your lunchroom, keeping money in your program. Smarter Lunchrooms is a concept that really promotes choice. So if we're talking about offering more choices, if students are motivated to choose it, then they're probably motivated to actually eat it. So Smarter Lunchroom strategies that are taken right off of the scorecard include offering sliced or wedged fruit, making the salad bar easily accessible and in a high traffic area so all students can see it, offering at least 2 kinds of fruits and 2 kinds of vegetables, and offering both a hot or cold vegetable. So Smarter Lunchroom strategies, if you're using some marketing, promoting those foods and really making them look good, the research shows that you can really decrease food waste. I would say that here in Montana, we're seeing decreased food waste by making salad bars look really nice through Smarter Lunchrooms, by putting fruit out in 2 locations across your line, and really letting students serve themselves. So Jay Stagg is a peer educator up in Whitefish Public Schools, and when I asked the peer educators to send me their top 3 tips to decrease food waste, this was his, and it was to cut fruit. So Jay said when he was without an apple core or a slicer for a while, he couldn't believe the number of apples, more than half of the apples he served that day, with 1 bite out of them, that were put in his compost bucket. So when he got his slicer fixed, and now there's only a few apple wedges being thrown in the compost. So not only did giving whole apples cost twice as much to purchase, he thinks that it increased his food waste by at least 10 times. So that's pretty powerful to think about that. And I was just at a great school the other day that had out this beautiful bowl of fresh apples, and they looked so shiny and red and inviting that almost every student that went through the line took one. They were self-serving apples, or they had a choice of an orange wedge. So I would say that by the time they sat down with their tray and ate everything, most of the students did not have time to eat their apple. So many of them got thrown away, or they were thrown away only half eaten. So even for the younger students, if those could have been even cut in half, I think that would have really have helped the students eat more of that. Marketing strategies. So if you're able to really promote your program, then students are really going to buy into it and be excited about eating those meals. So ideas include student survey to see what they like, taste testing. We're finding through Harvest of the Month is a great way to introduce new fruits and vegetables to kids. Create a student advisory committee. They have great feedback for you and they really have good ideas. Branding your lunchroom, marketing your menu. If you can do cooking demos or classes, that's always a fun hands-on way to get kids excited. Here's some examples of some bulletin boards from Gardner School. They, with their Harvest of the Month, and they did a taste test of carrot soup. And then different promotional events or different bulletin boards. So if you can find some students or somebody to help you with some marketing materials, that would be excellent because it would be one less thing you'd have to do to market your program. So if you have an art class that could maybe do some signage for you, that's an idea, or a business class that would be interested in helping you with marketing. Try to reach out and get anybody you can to help you with some marketing strategies. Okay, so I'm curious, would you type in the chat box, how many of you use a share table? A share table is one of the best things you can do to recover uneaten or unused foods. And what a share table is, it's where students can place unopened food or beverages that they choose not to eat or drink on a table before they dump their tray. And that makes it available for other students to go up and take an extra milk or an extra piece of fruit at no extra cost. We do. Good. I'm seeing that some of you are using share tables. It's really important if you want to do a share table that you talk it over with your local health department sanitarian, and then they will ask you to develop a standard operating procedure that addresses how you will do a share table safely. So you'd want it to be close to the cashier or close to where students exit the food service line. And it's ideal if it's monitored by a food service employee to make sure that the food or beverages are not opened and that they're in still good condition. And we have a handout on share tables that we just developed recently, and I need to get it posted on our website, and I did put that in the file share for you. So I'm going to see if I can pull it up here. And it looks like this is guidance on share tables, what it is, what foods can be shared, and then most importantly on here is some USDA guidance that can really support you in starting a share table. So this first one is USDA guidance on share tables. And the second one is a policy that USDA supports that students should be able to take non-hazardous food items out of the lunchroom. So if your school would have a policy that yes, students can take fresh apples or fresh bananas or a bag of baby carrots out of the lunchroom, that way they can eat it later and it's not just being thrown into the trash. So this is in the file share. You can use it to support your cause. And let me get back to this. These are examples of really simple share tables we have seen out in Montana schools. So most do whole fruit with a peel, many do unopened milk cartons, packaged items like crackers, things like that. So it's an excellent way to just reuse that food and not just throw it in the garbage. If you're not reusing it in your lunch program, these are other options on what you could do with food that you're collecting from your share table. You can share it with the school nurse's office for kids who need an extra snack in the morning or the afternoon. You could use it for classroom activities. Family consumer science classes might be able to use it in their recipes or their cooking lessons. Billings Skyview shares it with their FCS classes. Belgrade High School took all the fresh fruit they collected, put it in a nice basket, and put it in the hallway at the office, and then the students would just grab a piece of fruit on their way out the door. So that was really nice as well. So think about ways that you can reuse it. You can also donate it to a food recovery program, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, quickly, school policies that can help you decrease food waste include scheduling recess before lunch. If you do recess before lunch, you can reduce plate waste by as much as 30%. Extending your lunch period from 20 minutes to 30 minutes can really reduce your plate waste. And so the idea behind that is if your lunch period is 30 minutes and the kids have about 10 minutes to get in line, get their meal, and then sit down, it's ideal if they have 20 minutes of seat time once they sit down with their tray. The other thing to think about is trying to space your school meal periods out so that they're not eating school breakfast at 8 and then having lunch at like 10:30 or 10:45. And then eliminating vending machines also help decrease plate waste because students are hungry and haven't filled up with snacks from the vending machines. So I'm happy to tell you we just updated our recess before lunch guide with the help of Dale Hayes. She did the content and the support of our Montana Nutrition and Physical Activity program. So if you've wanted to try recess before lunch and you haven't been able to, please take a look at this guide located at this website, and I think you'll find some tools that could help you broach that idea with your school administration. In Montana, 32% of elementary schools use recess before lunch, and over the years we've surveyed principals, 80% who report that when they do recess before lunch they feel like their students eat better and decrease food waste. And then when we did our plate waste study in 4 different sites, I was surprised at the number of unopened milk cartons, how much that decreased. So when schools were having recess before lunch, kids get thirstier, and even if they don't love milk, most of them were so thirsty that they'd open their milk carton and drink some of it. So it also can help decrease your milk waste. Another important kind of concept is really thinking about, does my lunchroom promote relaxing meals? Do kids have enough time to eat once they sit down with their tray? And does our lunchroom environment really help kids eat well, or does it not help kids eat well? So this is a resource that we developed a few years ago, and it's called Comfortable Cafeterias, and it is great if you feel like your lunchroom could use a little improvement in the atmosphere, or if you feel like your lunchroom could be more positive. And please contact Katie or I if you'd like more information on Comfortable Cafeterias. Okay, one thing when we're talking about raising awareness about food waste, this is a poster that Gardner School has on their salad bar, and I also saw it at Livingston School salad bar. Take what you want and eat what you take. So if we have all of these students that are used to throwing away 40% of the food that they have at home, I think they throw away a lot of it at school because they just don't think about it. They're like conditioned to do that. So if we can help students realize that food waste is a big thing and try to get them to think about that, I think it would be a good investment in a whole nother generation that could waste less food. So if you're thinking about ordering posters or making posters for your salad bar, some schools are doing a zero waste lunch challenge, and so this is more for students who bring lunches from home. They're encouraged to bring their lunch in a Tupperware so they don't have so many plastic bags, to bring a metal fork instead of a plastic fork. If they're bringing a bottle of juice, then they could bring it in a glass jar, or they could recycle that juice bottle. So I'm thinking about a zero waste lunch. And then I think it'd be awesome if you had a class that would take this on, if they would make some charts or food waste graphs and put them in the lunchroom so their peers could see that. And when Billings Skyview started their share table, they did keep track of how many pounds of fresh fruit they were collecting, and they made a bar graph and put it in their cafeteria so that the other students could see it. I think that would be really powerful. This is a project that Libby Schools did as part of a Smarter Lunchrooms makeover. They had a group of 4th, 5th, 6th graders that partnered with their Libby Education Enrichment Program. They call it the LEAP program. And these students actually led and created a reducing food waste program at Libby School. And so these are some of the slides that the students developed and what they did. They noticed that students who were bringing lunches from home were creating or generating a lot of waste, a lot of paper waste. So they also noticed that at Libby Schools they were spending about $5,000 a year for sporks, and what they did is they decided to have a silverware drive, and so they sent it out to parents and community that they would collect as many spoons, forks, knives as they could so that they could save money by not having to buy as many sporks. So I think Ellen Mills told me that when it all came down to the end of the year, they saved about $3,000 by buying less plastic sporks. They also challenged each classroom to have a waste-free Wednesday. So students who brought lunches from home were challenged to have it waste-free, and students who had hot lunch that day were challenged to only take what they were going to eat on their tray. And then they had a weekly competition between the classes. So they had some great ideas at Libby School for reducing food waste. This is another new resource that we would love to get in the hands of a food service director and a family consumer science teacher who really would be interested in looking at waste at your school. There's 6 lessons in this, and it's all based upon engaging students in creating a smarter lunchroom. They're appropriate for middle school to high school, and I think it would fit best with either a family consumer science class or a health enhancement class. And in it, there's a simple waste observation form that the students can make some observations of what is being wasted. And there's also a full-blown plate waste study with the forms and the procedures. If anybody's interested in doing a plate waste study in your school, let us know and we could approach your FCS teacher about that. Food recovery programs. Schools don't really generate a lot of leftovers. So I'm not sure how common this is in Montana schools, but it is allowable per this USDA memo that was put out in 2012. It is allowable to donate excess food to a food recovery program. So that could be like your local food bank, it could be to a homeless shelter, it could be to any kind of nonprofit charitable organization. But in order to do it, you'd want to make sure you're following all of the guidance put out in this memo and make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row. One school that I do know is doing it really well is Sally Young at Greenfield School, and so if anybody wants to learn more about that, I know Sally loves to share how she does it and how she got her process going. But that is an option if you've tried everything you can to not overproduce meals, and then you've recovered everything you could from a share table. You're repurposing your excess in creative ways. If you have like a whole pan of lasagna that for some reason you have left over, then that might be a chance to donate it to a food recovery program. So the link to the USDA guidance memo is here. Okay, reusing material. Really think about if you can use reusable trays, dinnerware, silverware, so you're not just adding plastic waste or paper plate waste to the landfill would be great. Also, don't be afraid to tell your teachers that you have egg cartons, milk cartons, steel cans, boxes. They can be pretty creative using those for student art and science projects. Robin Vogler is a peer educator from summer schools, and she has changed from using the 4-ounce souffle cups to serving her fruit and veggies in small 4-ounce reusable dishes to save on plastic waste. She also just changed recently from milk cartons to a milk dispensing machine with reusable and washable cups, and I guess the kids love it. Darby School also just changed to a milk dispensing machine, and it's saving them money, and the kids are drinking more milk. Robin also suggests really previewing new menu items with taste tests to familiarize the kids and let them voice their opinion before you serve them as main entrees on the main line. Recycling is another option. If you have a compost in your school, that's an excellent way to recycle food. I noticed somebody said that they do livestock feeding. So most schools in Montana are close to farmers. Yay! So if you have farmers that could use your scraps for their pigs or their chickens, just ask the farmer to come pick it up from the school, and then that's always better than just adding food waste to the landfill. I'm going to bring in another poll. We're almost done here, so thank you for bearing with me. So this is multiple choice. If you could let me know, I use these strategies to decrease food waste in my school meals program. Just curious, how many of you are already doing some of these? So it looks like about 40% of us are using offer versus serve. Great. Somebody's using standardized recipes. Good. I offer sliced, cut, or wedged fruit. Excellent. Our students have enough time to eat once they sit down with their tray. Good. All right, thank you. All right, so as I was preparing this webinar, there are so many resources out there, and this is a brand new one that I had not seen. It's called Further with Food, and it's awesome. They have so many resources on there on food waste solutions, so I would encourage you to check that out. This is a tip specifically for schools that the Environmental Protection Agency put together. This is really neat. If you want to take a personal food waste challenge, or perhaps a Family Consumer Science high school class, or your FFA or 4-H club, this was kind of neat. It's a month-long food waste challenge that a family would do at home. And then this is a really nice extension feature series at this website. They have lots of great resources on decreasing food waste. And just in the file share, I just want to let you know that I did put in a variety of other resources for you. So please take time to download those files and get those out of there. This picture, the food Don't Waste It poster, is a World War I poster that was really marketing people not to waste food, even way back then. So I thought it was nice, and so I wanted to share it with you. I put that in the file share if you want to print it out and put it on your service line or your salad bar. And then if anybody has questions or best practice tips that you'd like to end with, please feel free to share that with us. If you have a best practice or a tip that you use to decrease waste that we haven't talked about. And we have a question in the chat box. I would really like to know where to recycle the cardboard boxes. And I think that might come from Medicine Lake. I forget where you're from, Terry. I think it would probably depend on what your community does to recycle cardboard boxes. You might ask like the hospital or some of the bigger businesses in town who are generating a lot of cardboard box waste, see what they're doing with theirs. Does anybody else have ideas on the cardboard box recycling for Terry? Ask the local grocery store, as they may know. Great idea. Before we end, I'd just like to ask anybody who did not sign in the chat box with your name and school, that would be great if you could do that now. If your school has a garden program, they use them as grass and weed preventers. Yes! They use it like as a weed mat. Or you could check your local dump. Great typo. All right. Any other questions before we adjourn? Erin, I'm going to get back with you just individually about this, your question about the seconds, if that's okay with you. Well, I appreciate everybody's time and participation on the webinar today. Here's my contact information, and please feel free if you have questions or need additional information to let me know. I did put a copy of the slides in the file share so you can easily access all those resources. Katie Bark said that some student clubs have taken on recycling programs, so you may suggest that to your student council. Yes. And I know if you have an FCC LA club, they also have a big food waste and recycling focus. FFA, yes. Okay, well that takes us up to almost 3 o'clock, and I hope that this was a good webinar for you today, and we appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. So we'll go ahead and sign off. Have a good afternoon.